I mean, you see the famous pictures of like the Marina District in San Francisco, which was built on the landfill from the 1906 earthquake. They just pushed it into the ocean and built houses on it, which is the worst possible thing they could have done. And in fact, much of San Francisco is built as wetlands naturally, and so there's very little of the city that's actually on bedrock. That's why they get a lot of damage, even though they didn't get anywhere near the sort of shaking we got in Santa Cruz County. But downtown Santa Cruz is a complete other story. To this day, there are holes in the ground where buildings had stood, and half the buildings that were there on October 17th are not there today. There have been new buildings where there are just still holes in the ground, including famous buildings like the Cooper House. And downtown Santa Cruz doesn't look anything like it did. It used to be very cozy and very neat. If you want to get a good look of what downtown Santa Cruz looked like before the earthquake, the best way to do that is to watch the Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry movie, Sudden Impact. A lot of it was filmed downtown Santa Cruz, a chase scene through downtown Santa Cruz. He eats at the Cooper House, which was demolished after the earthquake. Very sad, it was a historical landmark. And to give you a sense of how much stronger the 1906 quake was, you could look at the shake map from that earthquake, the estimation, and you see that even 80 miles away, because that earthquake was in San Francisco, the shaking in Santa Cruz County was even stronger than it was for the Loma Prieta earthquake that was in Santa Cruz. 6.9 versus a 7.8, which they estimate the other one was, is a huge difference because the Richter scale is logarithmic, so every point is like exponentially more, or logarithmically more, whatever. And so, I can say it's about 30 times stronger. So, I mean, I having lived through the 6.9, I just can't imagine what the 7.8 could have been like. It would have been absolutely insane. And of course, the area is due for that, but I don't live in that area anymore now that I'm in Nevada. We get like 2.4 earthquakes that you don't even feel. The aftermath of the earthquake was interesting. Well, actually, before the earthquake, there was actually a foreshock. And you don't realize when you have foreshocks that they are foreshocks until you have the big one. Although this one wasn't the big one, it was the pretty big one. But the aftershocks, I mean, I'd heard of aftershocks, but didn't realize how many aftershocks there are. And the first aftershock came just a few minutes later, and it was about a 5.6 or something like that, or 6, on the Richter scale. It was a significant earthquake normally. But I just walked down the hall and didn't even miss a beat because it was nothing compared to what I had just experienced. That was when I was going to get the radio, the battery-powered radio we had. But the aftershocks, I didn't realize how many there are after a big earthquake like this and how long. They go on for months. And every time there was an aftershock, most people freaked out because they brought back memories of the earthquake and they were really scared. It was different with me. I mean, obviously you're a bit frightened when it's happening, but I felt a sense of relief after each aftershock. What got to me was when the aftershocks became less and less frequent, and I start getting on edge, like the ground's going to move soon. When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? We got to have another earthquake. Why isn't it happening? And a lot of times when you had a long gap between aftershocks, the next one you got was going to be a pretty big one. So that was what got to me. Most people, it was the aftershocks themselves that freaked them out. But not me, it was a lack of aftershocks. To compare the biggest earthquake the area has had since the Loma Prieta earthquake, which a lot of teenagers were like freaked out about. Oh my gosh, did you feel that? Was a 5.4, I think it was, last year. And basically it was just a bit of shaking and then about a shift about 4 feet. Whoa! And that was it. It knocked over an LCD monitor, knocked some things off the shelves, and you had things leaning against your cabinet doors. You had to push things back before you open the cabinet door. But that was it. It was nothing. Absolutely nothing compared to the Loma Prieta earthquake. The roads were buckled, and it was just a very, very significant event. It's one of those events in your life that you date things that happen in your life as before that event or after that event. I think probably September 11, 2001 is one for many of us. But October 17, 1989 is definitely one of those dates. I think of things as that was before the earthquake, that was after the earthquake. It's, I think anyone who's lived through a natural disaster can understand that and probably thinks the same way. It's a milestone in your life, and that you remember things based on before or after the event.